Afternoon, folks. Thanks for having me at Regtech today. I appreciate you sharing your time with me. As you mentioned, my name's Nick Truran. I'm the Chief Executive for AgileIT, a consulting business that does transformative IT consulting to a number of financial services type customers. And one of the topics that I thought was quite relevant for something like Regtech was effectively how do you place the customer at the center of this conversation around regulatory requirements and regulation and the impact that it has on the ability to service customer. So I'm sure you've gone through now second day of a lot of governance, compliance. Everybody in the room know what anti-money laundering is? Anybody not know what anti-money laundering is? No. Gosh, I hope not. And know your customer, I'm assuming that's also been fairly covered to death. So I just figured let's just by way of hands, give me an indication of how many people actually have money. I'm assuming you all have money. Don't you? So we've got one person in the whole room that's got money. That's great. I'll be talking to you afterwards if you would like to share. I'm open to share schemes around money. So then the natural progression from that point is where do you put that money? Often it's in a bank or in a financial institution of some kind. So companies in the financial services industry. You've all been talking about AML and KYC and all these things. So here's a practical example. When you deal with your bank, you pick up the phone, and you dial that number, and you get through to a call center and says, welcome to X, Y, and Z Bank. Thank you for calling. Here's 10 million options for you to choose from. You spend about 5-10 minutes on the phone waiting for somebody to answer or find an option that you think could practically be similar to what you think you might need them to do. So you go through those options. And then once you've got there, they ask you for your ID number. Please enter your ID number followed by the hash key. So you enter your ID number by the hash key. And then you finally get through to somebody who says, hi, who am I speaking to? Why did you need my ID number then? So the first questions is we need to ask you a set of security questions to validate that you are in fact who you say you are. Please, can you give me your physical address? Please, can you give me your ID number again? Please, can you give me your telephone number? And you answer all these questions, and then effectively at some point you start to realize that they're going to start asking you for your blood sample and maybe a stool sample or whatever else goes with it. And, oh yes, what can I do for you now that you've actually validated that you are who you say you are? Right, I'd like you to please assist me with X, Y, and Z query. Oh, I'm terribly sorry, sir, we can't help you. That's another department, let me transfer you across to them. Anybody experience that kind of story? How does that make you feel? Something like that guy? Yeah, that's me when I was a bit younger. I don't know, maybe not. The fact is, it causes a lot of frustration for the users, a frustration for the customer. And I don't know about you guys, but I tear my hair out every day that I talk to these people. And effectively what you've been through is know your customer. That's what you've just been subjected to. They want to know who you are and validate who you are. And there's a lot of anti-money laundering components to that as well, which we don't spare all those details. But nonetheless, regulatory compliance versus customer centricity is really the theme that I wanted to cover today. So whilst you have all of these regulatory requirements, I think it's the way in which you implement those things that affect the way that you service your customer. And if we talk about customer centricity, which is what every business claims to be doing, then surely you should be looking at how you actually deliver those services to your customer in a seamless and in a very repeatable and a very reliable way. So it's great that you have to do these things to ensure that you're dealing with the right customer. I get that because of a lot of fraud and a lot of identity theft and a couple of other things that are prevalent in our market and our society today. But again, how do we take that information and apply it so that it doesn't impact our customer? So in case you were wondering, I put the boxing gloves there. It's try to symbolize a bit of a V to give you an idea of this is the regulations versus customer centricity. And in case you completely forgot, I just wanted to repeat the fact that it causes a lot of frustration. Okay. So let's get on to customer centricity, okay? Does everybody know what a customer is? Everybody thinks they know that a customer is somebody who consumes goods and services from you and hopefully consumes them in a favorable way, likes the way you deliver your service or your goods, and decides to recommend you to their friends and so on. And you get more customers and you make more money. But the ultimate is essentially this kind of picture where every client, where every business is trying to demonstrate value to the client. I think that's the major takeaway for me around a customer and how to be customer-centric. So how do you deliver value? How do you manage the relationship with your clients? Because good relationships equals repeat business and long-term and sustainable relationship. And obviously, brand loyalty and loyalty from a customer point of view. So that's really what we're trying to achieve, right, from a business perspective. That never has rung true more for me now than in the position that I'm in now. Because historically, I was working in a corporate space for another business and running operations in different places. And my entire career was dedicated to making a company successful and delivering IT services to the business. Now that I'm in my own business, I now need to understand how do I deliver services to my customers. So being the customer for many, many years, specifically from a technology point of view, and consuming services from service providers and security consultants and Accentures and EOHs and all these people, I started to realize that there's a lot of frustration that customers feel because what you are promised is not necessarily what you are delivered. And it's about that transparency and delivering to your client. So as part of this thinking that I wanted to share with you today, and hopefully it will win some of you over, is 3 steps, in my opinion, that you can take to be successfully placing your customer at the center of everything that you do. And it embeds within the regulatory type requirements as well. What those are for me is intention, leadership, and strategy. So what I thought was a good idea after almost 2 days of mind-numbing regulatory compliance, perhaps illustrating this using videos was probably the best way of doing it. So,
I call it the golden circle. Why, how, what? This little idea explains why some organizations and some leaders are able to inspire where others aren't. Let me define the terms really quickly. Every single person, every single organization on the planet knows what they do, 100%. Some know how they do it, whether you call it your differentiating value proposition or your proprietary process or your USP. But very, very few people or organizations know why they do what they do. And by why, I don't mean to make a profit. That's a result. It's always a result. By why, I mean what's your purpose? What's your cause? What's your belief? Why does your organization exist? Why do you get out of bed in the morning? And why should anyone care? Well, as a result, the way we think, the way we act, the way we communicate is from the outside in. It's obvious. We go from the clearest thing to the fuzziest thing. But the inspired leaders and the inspired organizations, regardless of their size, regardless of their industry, all think, act, and communicate from the inside out. Let me give you an example. I use Apple because they're easy to understand and everybody gets it. If Apple were like everyone else, a marketing message from them might sound like this. We make great computers. They're beautifully designed, simple to use, and user-friendly. Want to buy one? Meh. And that's how most of us communicate. That's how most marketing is done, that's how most sales is done, and that's how most of us communicate interpersonally. We say what we do, we say how we're different or how we're better, and we expect some sort of behavior, a purchase, a vote, something like that. Here's our new law firm. We have the best lawyers with the biggest clients. We have, we always perform for our clients, do business with us. Here's our new car. It gets great gas mileage. It has, leather seats. Buy our car. But it's uninspiring. Here's how Apple actually communicates. Everything we do, we believe in challenging the status quo. We believe in thinking differently. The way we challenge the status quo is by making our products beautifully designed, simple to use, and user-friendly. We just happen to make great computers. Want to buy one? Totally different, right? You're ready to buy a computer from me. All I did was reverse the order of the information. What it proves to us is that people don't buy what you do, people buy why you do it. People don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. This explains why every single person in this room is perfectly comfortable buying a computer from Apple. But we're also perfectly comfortable buying an MP3 player from Apple, or a phone from Apple, or a DVR from Apple. But as I said before, Apple's just a computer company. There's nothing that distinguishes them structurally from any of their competitors. Their competitors are all equally qualified to make all of these products. In fact, they tried. A few years ago, Gateway came out with flat-screen TVs. They're eminently qualified to make flat-screen TVs. They've been making flat-screen monitors for years. Nobody bought one. And Dell came out with MP3 players and PDAs. And they make great quality products, and they can make perfectly well-designed products, and nobody bought one. In fact, talking about it now, we can't even imagine buying an MP3 player from Dell. Why would you buy an MP3 player from a computer company? But we do it every day. People don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. When we communicate from the outside in, yes, people can understand vast amounts of complicated information like features and benefits and facts and figures. It just doesn't drive behavior. When we communicate from the inside out, we're talking directly to the part of the brain that controls behavior, and then we allow people to rationalize it with the tangible things we say and do. This is where gut decisions come from. You know, sometimes you can give somebody all the facts and your figures, and they say, I know what all the facts and details say, but it just doesn't feel right. Why would we use that verb? It doesn't feel right. Because the part of the brain that controls decision-making doesn't control language. And the best we can muster up is, I don't know, it just doesn't feel right. Or sometimes you say you're leading with your heart, or you're leading with your soul. Well, I hate to break it to you, those aren't other body parts controlling your behavior. It's all happening here in your limbic brain, the part of the brain that controls decision-making and not language. But if you don't know why you do what you do, and people respond to why you do what you do, then how will you ever get people to vote for you or buy something from you, or more importantly, be loyal?
So for me, the biggest takeaway from this, and the three messages that I leave you with, is why do we do what we do? Why do our customers want to buy from us? And why wouldn't they want to buy from someone else? So that's what I feel is putting your intention behind how you attack your customer and market to your customer. So just bear that in mind while we move forward. So the next piece of what I wanted to talk about was a leadership piece that I was quite inspired by David Marquette. Anybody know David Marquette? You do? Some nods around the room. Anyone seen this already? Good. I think you'll enjoy it. Bear with me with the videos. I think they have a lot of meaning. This is the boring bit.
I was trained for one submarine, my guys were trained to do what they were told. That's a deadly combination. We all know organizations where people just follow the leader into disastrous situations. So I got my guys together and I said, hey, we got a problem here. I was trained for another submarine. You're trained to do whatever nonsense comes out of my mouth. That's right, Captain. I mean, they knew. They already knew. I was pretty much talking to myself. So I said, what are we going to do? What are we going to do, guys? And we talked about it. Okay, what I really wanted to do was get ready for the inspection. But we were sitting in the wardroom. We spent a couple hours. We were talking about it. And we came up with all these different things. And, well, you Captain, you just got to be smarter. You got to give better orders. It's like, well, how am I going to learn a whole nuclear submarine, miles of valves and pipes? I spent a year learning Olympia, 2 weeks over here. So in a year, we'll be safe? That's not going to work. We had to deploy the submarine in 6 months. So we talked about it, and they said, okay, there's only one logical solution. We figured it out. You, they're pointing at me, you shut up. What do you mean? That's not what captains do. That's not what captains of nuclear submarines do. They walk around. They give orders. They sound like Russell Crowe. Head 2/3, dive, make it up 500 feet. Helm left 15 degrees weather, steady course 255. Load torpedoes and tubes 1, 2, 3, and 4. Flood down, open outer doors, right? And I thought about it. And you know what? They were right. So at that point, I vowed never to give another order. And if you came down on my submarine, it would have been very confusing because you couldn't have pointed. It would have been hard to say, well, who's the captain here? Because you wouldn't have seen me giving orders. I did retain one order. The final order to launch a weapon, a torpedo or a missile, I I kept with me because I felt that since that was going to result in the deaths of other human beings, that I didn't want that on anyone's conscience but mine. That was my moral and ethical responsibility. But even though everything else in the Navy, there's long lists of things that says the captain has to authorize. Captain should authorize. You got a couple nukes in your group, they'll tell you it's true. Captain authorized, submerge the ship, get underway, start up the reactor, shut down the reactor, connect to shore power, divorce from shore power, on and on, break rig for dive, on and on and on, pages of these things. I just refused to give those orders. What we replaced it with was intent. Instead of giving instructions, if you want your people to think, don't give instructions, give intent. So they would come to you, hey, what do you want me to do? Well, left full rudder, steady course 255. No. I say, well, what are we trying to accomplish here today? Well, we're trying to get in position so that when the enemy submarine comes through, okay, so where do you think we should position the ship? Maybe over here. Good idea, go there. You give intent to them and they give intent to you. So my officer stopped requesting permission. And every other submarine, Captain, request permission to submerge the ship. Submerge the ship. Submerge the ship, aye. On Santa Fe, Captain, I intend to submerge the ship. Very well. And they did it. And it might seem like it's a very small, nuanced change of language, but it was hugely powerful because the psychological ownership now shifts to them. They need to discover the answer. Otherwise, you're always the answer man. You can never go home and eat dinner. And so we started doing this. And it was hugely powerful. Actually, we went another step. Then I got smarter and I said, when the officer said, Captain, I intend to submerge the ship, I would ask him, well, what do you think I'm thinking right now? And he'd look at me, hard to tell. I'm guessing you're wondering whether it's safe. Bingo! I said, well, convince me it's safe. He said, Captain, I intend to submerge the ship. All men are below, hatches are shut, ship's rigged for dive. I checked the bottom depth. The submarine's in the water that's been assigned to us. Then later I would ask them, is it the right thing to do? And they would say, well, yes, sir, because our mission requires that we... And these are the two pillars that I think support this idea of giving control. These are the two pillars that need to be in place. The technical competence, which is represented by, is it safe? And the organizational clarity, which is represented by, is it the right thing to do? And you put those things in place, and then you can give control, and you give control, and you put those things in place. And you are off to the races.
So the key takeaway for me for that is intent, which we spoke about earlier, but the same is around people starting to begin to think like their leaders. So if the people that are leading an organization are advocating how you need to focus on customer centricity and how you need to know your customer and how you need to be aware of anti-money laundering, and they feel a part of that journey, then they start becoming advocates for those processes. I think if any one of you have done any of that training, you'll know factually that it takes a lot of understanding and people need to go through that process, but it needs to be done on a regular basis because you actually need to live it and breathe it. It's not something that can just be discarded. However, the thing that it does as well is if everybody understands the way that their leadership is thinking and they start behaving in the same way, it improves productivity. It's certainly going to decrease risk, decrease the overall cost of efficiency, and ultimately you deliver a better quality service. So something that I wanted to also share with you is people that work with more intent and purpose, they don't work for a boss, they work for a company. And they live that company's values. They eat, sleep, live, and breathe. I am a part of this organization. That comes from good leadership. So moving on, I just thought I'd play something small around strategy, because it's the third point, and I wanted a chap by the name of Ronnie the Gunner O'Sullivan to illustrate the point around strategy. So I don't know if anyone is aware of this chap. He's a professional snooker player. So have a look and see what old Ronnie has been up to.
Ronnie's just trying to get his foot in. Obviously, you've got to play the shot with one foot touching the floor. You can't take your foot off. That would be a foul shot if he did that. Oh, yes, he took his shoe off there to play that shot.
Yeah, obviously we felt with bouncing on his toes, didn't we, with his slip.
perfection yet again. This really has been a masterclass in cue ball control today. I can't tell you how hard this game is, and I can't tell you how easy he makes it look. And I mean this with the greatest respect to the rest of the players in the field, but when he plays properly, he's just a different level to everybody.
He plays snooker that
42.
no other top player can get close to, I'm afraid.
43.
And can any of the other top players step up to the plate? I think that was what Ronnie said at the beginning of the championship. Is there anyone out there that wants to
Just for
take
time,
up the
I'm moving
mantle?
forward.
50.
So while we're finishing here, I want you to take particular note of the score at the bottom. If you know anything about snooker, effectively what he's managed to achieve here is with a clean sweep. So a clean sweep means that you've effectively rendered your opponent useless. He has no opportunity to play whatsoever. And the thing that was a huge takeaway for me is victory is as a result of eliminating the competition. But why was he so successful was the fact that he had the ability to place the white ball in the position for his next shot. So he was considering all the time where he was going to go next and his ability and skill to place that white ball in the position that it needs to be in order to complete that next shot. So that, for me, is a great way of illustrating strategy. And now those three elements and how those relate to custom centricity is take those components together. If you've got a good, strong strategy around how you want to take your products and services to market, coupled with really strong and great leadership, that you have a staff complement of leaders that believe implicitly in what you're offering and what you're trying to deliver. And at the last portion, you have enabled them with understanding the philosophy of why you're doing what you're doing and the intent to focus and deliver that through to your customer. Then they will eat, sleep, live, and breathe any regulatory requirement that you throw at them, whether it be AML, KYC, or anything else like the GDPR or anything else. So that's really the messaging that I wanted to give you. Now, to illustrate that, I wanted to go back to my example that I posed earlier, back to our little banking example. So for me, how could things be different? I would try and take a technology approach to shifting the way that we operate that same service. So how about phoning that bank and getting through and saying, welcome to XYZ Bank. Please press 1 if you're an existing client, 2 if you're not, or you'd like to speak to an operator. What do? Existing client's going to press 1. Okay? You can still throw out the ID number. Give me your ID number, press hash. And when the call center agent answers the phone, good day, Mr. Truran, how are you? It's good to hear from you again. How may I help you today? Understand the query before you ask the security questions. I would like you to please assist me with X or A or B or C and say, oh, Mr. Truran, before we get into that, let me transfer you to the right department. And when you transfer me to the right department, educate the agent on the other side that you're transferring me to tell them, this is Mr. Truran, here's his ID number, these are all his details, this is what his query is. You can now go ahead and do the security verification with him. My experience is completely different. Second portion is if I'm not an existing customer, I go straight to an agent and I say, hi there, I'm interested in the following services. Can you help me? Absolutely, we can help you. May I take your name and some of your details? Certainly you may. I will route you through to the agent that will assist you. When I route you through to that agent, guess what? I've educated them to say, this is the individual's name, he's not a customer, he would like to be, this is what he's interested in. Can you please assist? Agent comes on the phone, good day, Mr. Truran, I believe you're interested in the following, let's get cracking with an application. Now, how many of you in the room see the difference in the two different scenarios? I've still implemented Know Your Customer, and I've still prevented anti-money laundering from taking place in a financial institution, and I haven't pissed my customer off at the same time.